Hey everybody, so I just watched the video that I uploaded probably about 5 days ago, and I noticed that all I did was I forgot to talk about the code updates. I just like talked about the way the ThreeJS works and all that. So that was not ideal. And then I was watching the video that I just made a few minutes ago, and I did the exact same thing. So yeah, I will make sure I go over the code. That's kind of crazy that I didn't. But anyway, so one, I did want to go over the stuff I went over in that video and quickly. So first of all, so I'm done with, for the moment, with the animations and then the upgrade. And now I'm working on mesh, and there's like four things I want to get done before I leave mesh to move on to lights. And the first thing I want to do is get the angles, control of the angles. And I did get the static control of the angles, so non-animated. So you can come in here and you can just do like one, 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 and that's pretty awesome, and that works. And this, so I mentioned before, there's like three kinds of things of materials, and they have advantages and disadvantages. The simplest material is called well, so the most complex that I do is Fong, and you can't see it because it's there's no light, so it's black, and we have a black background. Um, then the next is this one, which you can have color and is independent of light, and light doesn't affect it, but it still casts shadows. And then I think the one that's most useful for this demonstration is normal, and that's just because each it doesn't care about light, it doesn't cast shadows, and each one of the sides has its own color, so you can kind of see the different things. So if I make this 0, 0, and 0, we get nothing. So basically, the X rotates along the X-axis, and the way where the camera's sitting, it's sitting all along the Z-axis. So the X-axis is like this to us. So if I add 1, it just rotates 1. If I add 3.14, it rotates 180 degrees, because 3.84 in radians is 180 in degrees. So I'll just do that real quick. First, I'll do 1, so you can just see it rotate a little bit, and then 3.84, 3.21, right? 3 point, what is pi? Oh my gosh, this is crazy. Pi. Oh my lordy. Pinterest? No, that is not pi. Pi. 3.14, yeah. That is so crazy that I forgot that. So that's 180 degrees. So 1.57, no, 1.67. They're going to take away my engineering degree. 6, 7 is like looking at the top. So 0.83 is like 45 degrees. Wow, that is so weird. Okay, so let's just put them all at 45 degrees. I think that will be interesting. And boom. And so it's rotated in 45 degrees along every axis. And that's how that works. Let's do the code. So basically, first thing in the code was to add the X, Y, and Z to the mesh interface, and then just see what breaks. And I did that. And in the services, it broke. Yeah, let's go ahead and get rid of that. Here it is. And there we go. And I will just, let's look at it this way. So in the mesh interfaces, we added these three. I added these three. And then in the service, apparently I added 2 blank lines, which was not very useful. And then I also added another blank line. I like my blank lines. And then a console log, because I was trying to figure stuff out, which I don't need anymore. And I could use that back. And then real changes. Yeah, over here, basically I take whatever we get in the form. So if I add a mesh, I look at the form. So I had to do this is nan thing so that the user can type in like point, because that is nothing. So it's just going to leave it wherever it was at, 0.4. Right, so basically it's going to get the rotation, the current X rotation from the mesh, and then it's going to set it if whatever is in the form makes sense or doesn't make sense. And this is at the service level, so it's not really, it doesn't really care where it came from. If you give it something that doesn't make sense, it's basically just going to ignore it, reset it to whatever it is. Um, and then if it doesn't, uh, if whatever it gets from the mesh item makes sense, then it'll go ahead and update it. In the toolbox, I made a change just to make it to where the mesh is the first thing selected, just for convenience. And then in the form template, I added the new form inputs. And then in the mesh manager, I just this is where most of the work was. Basically, this broke because of the TypeScript change, and I need to add 3 things. Uh, this is basically getting the data. There's a subscription, and this is getting that data back. And then here we are initially setting it up, and then this is if it changes outside, because in the near future it'll be able to change an animation. This is what updates the form. So it's pretty simple. Like I said, I think I mentioned, there's like animation of this is coming next, and then I have animation code in there that came in the very, very first video that'll finally go away in favor of actually being able to let the user set the animation. And then the next thing is I don't think I mentioned this. I'm a little confused because I did another video a second ago in which I forgot to go over the code, but I did go over the things I want to change. I want to get these two out of this interface and let the component handle that at their level. This does not need to be at the share. It doesn't need to be across. And the reason is because like animation also has its own form and sub. So it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't belong in the actual interface of the mesh. So I'll remove that. And that's going to be a good bit of work. And then I want to add the font meshes so I can have letters in here, and I think that'll make it a much better application. So after doing the upgrade, so technically we are Angular 18 now, but emotionally we're not, because we still have the zones. So if you look up Zone.js, you find it in the polyfill, or you find it in the dependencies, and you also find it in why am I looking in there, in the polyfills. And it really needs to be gone from these things. I don't really have any problem with Zone.js. I think it's done a brilliant idea. So on a personal level, I don't have any problem with it, but I do want this application to still be like functioning in Angular 35, when we go around. I don't want to have like an old unmaintainable application that no one knows what it does. I did notice one kind of crazy thing that's different, and that's like if you look in most modern Angular applications, you're going to see an assets folder there, and in the latest Angular, they have created a public, and the assets is like a sibling to the app, and the public is a sibling to the source. So basically, I added this assets so that in my other application that I have for my wife's business, craftybymelissa.com, whenever I kind of wanted the naming of the locations to be the same, so I added this assets folder. But if you look up public over here, inside of Angular, they have this glob and input. And if you look up assets over here, you'll see that they have a similar thing. They're both in this architect build, and then assets, and then this is like that. and that's architect build, but it doesn't have the glob and the assets like that. So, and then if you look in the public, let's see, yeah, I did the assets in, oh, at the very top, there's the fave icon exists there. Whereas this guy, the fave icon is identified in the assets folder. So I definitely want to migrate this to be more like this, just because, I don't really need that to be different. And that's about it. I'm a little bit over, but happy coding, everybody. Uh, Bye.